Hello, you malty, malt-loving, mangly Mendels. Menders. Anyway, that's a malt mention. I'm Ralphie here in the Bothy, somewhere in the Irish Sea, and I owe a great big malt mention thank you to Herrington Levels for providing a malt mention to Ralphie Review 947, in which I am reviewing part of a series, or an ongoing series, on Scotch single malt whiskies, which are perhaps a little bit obscure and less known, either as official bottlings or as independent bottlings. And I'm doing a sort of series of reviews for over about 6 weeks, so 1.5 months, featuring an independent bottling followed by an official bottling. And all the whiskies are less available, they're more restricted on the open market, on the international market. And the reason I'm doing this series of reviews is so that they're out there as a point of reference, because so many whisky review channels will focus more or less exclusively on what's accessible and available, because naturally it's going to help with viewing figures. So you don't often see reviews of the likes of Strathmill, for example, or Glenkeith, for example, or Royal Loch Nagar. Very rarely gets reviewed. You're more likely to see Macallan's and Glenfiddich's, Glenlivet's and Glenfarclas's. And that's absolutely fine, but for those of you who are going further down the malt road on a malt moment journey, you will inevitably start to become curious as to these more obscure bottlings from less well-known distilleries. And you will see them increasingly at small specialist shops, where in the modern market, and it's the international market now, specialist shops have to become more specialist so as to compete through their identity and market positioning with the likes of Amazon, some big supermarkets, the likes of Costco and Travel Retail, and the great big online retailers. So I'm continuing this with this. This is actually the last one in the series, and I'm going to review next week a much more available single malt, for a simple reason. We're into October now, and with October you get the start of the busiest time of year internationally for the release of new whiskies and existing whiskies from well-known distilleries. So I'm going to be focusing on them, particularly for those of you who are malt mates that are buying really at this time of year, so rather than during the summer, the more occasional buyers, and you're basically looking for something to see in the new year. Well, I tell you what, this would do just fine. This is a cask strength official bottling of Edredure from a mid-Highland distillery just outside of Pitlochry in the centre of Scotland on the A9 as you're going up to Inverness. And Edredure is particularly known for its sherry matured whiskies, hence this particularly rich, luscious, wonderful colour, which too many malt mates make the mistake of judging their quality of the whisky by. You get some really bad dark coloured whiskies, and you get some really, really good, very light coloured whiskies. But hey, that knowledge is all part of the journey. So what do we have here? Let me give you a further introduction to this. This is a 2009 vintage. I'll hold the details up. Don't mind the great big ugly tax duty paid sticker. That's just there to make sure that in the UK market, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, not the government, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, have got their slice of the cake. It's called feudalism. And hey, it's a system that works. So there's the details. You should get them in full view now. I'll drop the tax paid sticker so it looks a bit cosmetic, more cosmetic. There we go. hold it there, bring it back again, turn it around, nice flask, right? You're paying a premium for that, by the way, a hefty premium. 12 years old, cask number 100 for all you squiddly malt mates that like the detail. Distilled in April 2009, bottled in May 2021. There was an outrun, basically mean there's the number of bottles they got from that particular cask of 655 bottles. So definitely you can be rest assured, particularly at cask strength, you've got a sherry butt, a butt holding 650 litres, or 550 to 650 litres of content, and it hasn't leaked much because after 12 years the strength of the alcohol is pretty high at 57.4%. And it does say sherry cask matured, but hey, I think we already knew that. And what are we getting? What is it in terms of smell and taste? It's got that great big sherry, Christmassy, cakey, black bun type, see the new year in type, dried fruits, figs, dates. It's earthy, it's distinctively earthy. When you ever in a warehouse and they've got earth floors and it's slightly damp and musty and umami in a sort of old woodland sort of way, that's what you're getting in some whiskies. And here you're getting it at a relatively young age. So I reckon it's something to do with the wood and where the cask has been stored in Spain. The reason I say that is because before sherry casks are shipped over to Scotland empty for whisky to be put into, they're over in Spain for quite a number of years, being seasoned, and seasoning with sherry casks can be 6 months, it can be 6 years, it can be 60 years. It can be however long they want it to be, and you do have some distilleries will pay the extra money, and quite a lot of money extra, to still get traditional sherry casks that actually matured sherry in the first place. Because there's quite a lot of demand for dessert sherry across Europe, particularly in Spain, where the PX sherry, the real gooey confectionery stuff, gets poured over ice cream. Always learning something in this channel, malt mates. Taste. Great big, fierce, unpleasant, alcoholic burn. 1 full teaspoon, 2 full teaspoons, right? Lots of water. Hey, I'm not saying that you've got to use lots of water. What I'm saying is I'm using lots of water. I've got to cut down the alcohol because I've got to get access to the flavours, the flavour range, the sensation range, and the form of this whisky, which already, for a 12-year-old whisky, I get the strong impression that it's a younger whisky in a much older cask. Quite possibly, I mean, this is pure speculation, so please keep that in perspective. I just get the impression that you can take an ex-wet sherry butt, right? And then you can, because you've ordered in a few casks, hogsheads of sherry, you can actually re-season your own sherry casks for refill. Now, I want to make it clear that I don't think for 1 minute for sure that Edradour are doing this, but it's a perfectly reasonable and acceptable technique for refurbishing casks. And when you get a real rich sherryness, but it's really quite spirit driven, you've got to examine the permutations and the options that are available to distillers to rejuvenate and to reuse their casks within the regulations and within the constraints of the law. It's as simple as that, particularly at this moment in time when casks empty casks of anything to be used for Scotch whisky have never ever been more expensive than they are now. Simples. Now I've given a full 2 teaspoonfuls of water in this, and it wasn't a big measure of whisky, you can see that, simply because of the strength of it. I'm going to hold up, you can see a little slight development now of Scotch mist. It's happening quite slowly, but it is there. You see, this is another thing that I'm kind of aware of, is that there's a real full sherry flavour, but not a lot of sherry oak flavour that you would get from the wood. And if you've got a lot of oils and extracts from the wood itself, you tend to get your whisky going cloudy from unchill filtering that little bit faster. So these are the little tiny clues when you get to the Sherlock Holmes stage of analysing whisky. Right, let's have another bash in this. Oh, much fresher, almost citrus, sherry citrus in the nose, more toffeed, again quite dry. I'm really becoming aware even in the nose of the sensation range here. That's the sour and bitter in particular, just a hint of salt in the background. Taste. A complex, demanding, aggressive Sherry Monster. Loads of really rich raisin, floods of raisin. But you get this umami earthiness, old Dunwich warehouses. But it's all quite fresh, it's all quite zesty in a non-citrus sort of way. Toffee, rich toffee, a little bit of the Edredure signature, but it tends to be very much lost in that big, aggressive, hard to get to know, I'm being diplomatic here, big sherry cask note. That's a dry sherry cask. But I get the impression that there's been sweet sherry in the cask and then dry sherry in the cask at separate times. It's just it's a feeling I get because of just the array of flavours and the way that the sherry cask is quite complex. Its influence really dominates even after 12 years. And for such a flavoursome single malt, I would seriously expect it to be a little more prominent after 12 years, but it's not really. So the finish, I'll have one more taste before we wind things up. Slightly perfumed, twigs and Parma violets, cough mixture, lozenge, green mintiness, slight spearmint, cola, camphor, earthy stuff. Can I use that as a tasting note? Earthy stuff. Well, I just have. What am I going to give this? This is a challenging whisky, by the way. Challenging. I don't recommend for 1 minute that you buy this unless you're a fan of Edredure and you're a fan of demanding, aggressive single malt whiskies, which are going to take time to know. Let me reassure you, with water and about 20 minutes, because it does take time, it does kind of round off slightly, but only slightly, not a lot. Your Sherry Monster just becomes a little less monstery. 84 out of 100, that is an Integrity Malt Mark. There you go, malt mates. Malt Mark. Right. I'm going to conclude this video with a very short resume of the Edredure, basic Edredure range. So here we have the cask strength, right? 12-year-old. This is what's been available at the moment. These quickly sell out, by the way. And before that, I reviewed the official in-house independent bottling, a 46% unchill filtered, which I gave a mark of 89 to. And before that, I reviewed the basic Edradour, 40% chill filtered, and I gave that 87. So here you have essentially exactly the same whisky from different casks, but all sherry casks. You can see by the colour. My most recent review, cask strength 57.4, 46%. These two are unchill filtered. Here's the 40%. This has been chill filtered. But bear in mind, chill filtering is not a standard protocol. You can get aggressively chill filtered or passively chill filtered. I would say this is relatively passively chill filtered. And it's helped to preserve the identity and the flavour of a really good cask. Of the three, in my opinion, this is the best cask, tasting the three of them, but it's the poorest quality of presentation. This is the second best cask with the best presentation. And this is the worst of the three casks with the best, with the connoisseur's presentation. And I want to conclude by getting up my chalkboard. Okay, there we go. Let's go for it. Pointy spoon. So Edradour, 10-year-old, 40%, 87 out of 100. And that cost me £45. Aye. The second one in the middle, with a higher mark, cost me £58. And the cask strength one cost me £100. This was basically virtually double the price of this and this, but the difference between this and this is basically just over £10, but you're getting the best version, the best quality of whisky in the official independent bottling, because it's official independent, because this independent whisky company owns the distillery, and therefore in this instance we regard both the official bottling and the independent bottling as essentially coming from the same warehouse until we know different. So this is what boils down to how do we spend our money? You could really spend a lot of cash. You could spend well over double, right, for this, and yet this is actually the best quality cask. And it's a matter of taste, but I'm giving you a review on my taste, because all three are different casks. All of three, they are. You can see just the difference, and that difference is amplified by the fact that all three are exactly the same signature, exactly the same liquor, coming out the same stills. They're all Edradour. This is 10-year-old and 10-year-old and 12-year-old, so there's only a couple of years between them. That's all. It's not a lot. And yet look at the difference in price. This is £45, which is relatively expensive for a 40% whisky, although in the US you'll get it at 43% probably. But this one, this is by far the best value, because for an extra £13, right? Yep, extra £13. So for not a lot extra, for a small premium, you're getting it natural colour, unchill filtered, which delivers the texture, the mouthfeel, and the fuller experience. And then you go to the fancier flask, the one that is bottled for the connoisseurs, and yet you have the most difficult and unrewarding cask. I mean, definitely, not possibly, definitely. This is, I'm giving you detail here that you're not going to find anywhere else. You're just not. And I'm giving you in relation to the price that you would pay in the UK. And these are the good prices. These aren't the extravagant prices that you would pay up in the Royal Mile, for example, at some shops during the Arts Festival. Which is why we see when you're in the UK, be very careful where you spend your money. Because there's what's called tourist traps. And there are people, some businesses that want to rip you off. It's happened to me in the past. It happened once or twice. Never happened again. I'll tell you the story one day. But there you have it. £45, £58, then boom, virtually doubled. £100. Is that worth £100? No. Look at the malt mark. I'm Ralphie. I hope you've enjoyed this. Pop back again for my Ralphie Review 947 Extras, right, in which I shall be introducing the online Scotch Whisky Awards 2022. Hugely important event on the international online malt scene. If you're at all into Scotch whisky and the whiskies that Scotch drinkers drink when they're not drinking Scotch, it's a fascinating shortlist which you can participate in. You can be involved directly. No other, I'm telling you, no other award allows this. Only the online Scotch Whisky Awards. See you soon, malt mates.